Where is Bhutan? It's in the Himalaya mountains, bordered by India to the south and China to the north. We flew from Kathmandu to Paro, the international airport for Bhutan. This can be a very scenic flight with the Himalaya mountains to the left of the aircraft, but unfortunately, due to the early arrival of the monsoons, there was dense cloud over the mountains, so we could not see them. We were proceeding towards Bhutan. We were hoping for a break in the cloud to descend through. Eventually we broke out of the cloud and saw the ground, and we were actually flying down a valley. Paro Airport is reputed to be the most dangerous approach in the world. We fly down a valley and then do some sharp turns to line up with the runway. The approach involves flying past quite a high mountain on the right side of the aircraft and then making a sharp turn to the left to line up with the runway very close to the ground. This is the view of the approach to the runway, with the runway in the middle of the picture and the mountain on the right that the aircraft has to fly past. Looking back from the airport, the aircraft flies down the valley from the left. The airport is at high altitude, so the runway has to be quite long to allow the aircraft to take off in the rarefied atmosphere. The Bhutanese flag is yellow and red with a dragon in the middle with a diamond in each claw. The yellow at the top is for Buddhism and the red is for the royalty. Bhutan is a monarchy, and this is the king with his queen. The previous king in the center of this picture had 4 wives, all sisters. The present king lives very modestly in this small palace. Bhutan embraces a policy of gross national happiness for its population. Bhutan has adopted the tankan as its national animal. It is an animal that grazes in the mountains around the country and is an extremely clumsy looking animal, reputed to have been made by a saint, assembled by a saint from parts from a goat and a cow. Archery is the national sport in Bhutan, and most Bhutanese men practice it. All villages have archery grounds and there is great rivalry between the teams. Modernization has resulted in the bamboo bows being replaced by American compound bows. Competition is intense with great rivalry between the teams and a lot of whooping and hollering and ridiculing bad shots by the opposing team. Missed the target completely and went into the sandbags behind the target, much to the amusement of all the other players watching. Strict, and shooters can be disqualified for the slightest infringement. A little song and dance greets the opponent's errors.
That's good.
Yeah. In a country where everyone wears the national dress and wealth is associated with fine weaving, the age-old skills inherent in creating lengths of coloured fabric are highly regarded. These ladies have won scholarships to come to this school to learn the ancient art of weaving. The streets of Paro are lined with low-rise buildings of traditional national design, while the capital, Thimphu, the buildings are taller but still of traditional design. Tang Tong Gyalpo was a wonder-working Tibetan saint who is believed to have originated the use of heavy iron chains in the construction of suspension bridges and who built 108 bridges throughout Tibet and Bhutan. In his memory, parts were salvaged, and this bridge was built as an example of his work. Moira with our assistant guide making her way across the memorial bridge. Close by, the great bridge builder built this private family temple or zong on the hill. This magnificent building dominates the skyline and is the National Assembly and also a monastery with many monks in residence. Surmounting the building is the drama wheel, which is one of the oldest symbols of Buddhism. The deer signify that Buddha found enlightenment in the forest. Throughout the country there are numerous statues to Buddha and also paintings, with each one having a different message for the faithful. This was the thing with Buddha, he always had the message to give to the people. Bhutan is a very mountainous country with only one road running east to west and two roads running down to India. Driving out of Thimphu, you see on the horizon slightly to the right a gigantic statue. This is a huge 50-meter tall statue of Buddha Dhamma still under construction. When completed, it is claimed that it will be the largest Buddhist statue in the world and the huge three-story throne will eventually hold 7 chapels, while the body itself will be filled with 125,000 smaller statues of Buddha. The statue was made in China in pieces and shipped to site to be assembled. With the expanding economy in Bhutan, more people are moving from the country to the city, resulting in the suburbs stretching further and further out and encroaching into farmland. Fruit and vegetables are a great source of income for Bhutan, and roadside stalls sell these produce, and the long white strings are yak cheese. Moving eastwards, the road passes over the Dokshu Pass at 3,150 meters above sea level. And at this pass there are these 108 stupas, or chotans, which were erected as a memorial to a battle between Indian militants who had infiltrated into the sparsely populated parts of Bhutan close to the Indian border and set up camp to fight insurrection against the Indian government. These were militants and not part of the Indian military at all. As at all such sites, there was an incense burner with incense floating over the air. The road east is quite rough, but the government has said by 2022 the road will be rebuilt, and an Indian company is there working on the road, which is a very hard job because it skirts along the sides of the mountains. The scenery is magnificent along the way, with paddy fields and lots of birds. In the background you might hear a cuckoo. There are many varieties of cuckoo in Bhutan, and we love to listen to them whenever we stopped. Again, all along the way, the houses are built in traditional style. This attractive monastery is called the Puka Ka and was built in the 17th century and is situated at the confluence of 2 rivers, the Mother and the Father River in central Bhutan. It serves as the winter quarters for the thousands monks from the Thimphu Dzong who come there for the winter. It's a very pleasant place, especially in spring when the jacarandas are in bloom, adding a beautiful colour to the area. Honeybees use the overhangs of the Dzong windows to build their hives. Dzongs were also used as fortresses, and these steep stairs are retractable for defense purposes. This painting shows one of Bhutan's famous fables, and it tells the story of the elephant, the monkey, the peacock and the rabbit, how they combined forces to obtain a continuous supply of fruit. The peacock found the seed and planted it, the rabbit watered it, the monkey fertilized it, and the elephant guarded it. When the fruit was ripe, the tree was so high that they could not reach the top. The 4 animals made a tower by climbing on one another's backs and plucked the fruit from the high branches. The inside of the Dzong is divided for religious and civil purposes. The monks chant their mantra throughout the day. While all around is the magnificence of the architecture and the workmanship. It's a beautiful place. An interesting feature of the architecture is that there were never any plans drawn, and nails were not used at all in the construction. The monks' dormitories are along the side of the building. Close by is this very impressive long suspension bridge which crosses the river and was built quite recently just to make it easier to get from one side to the other. As usual, there's an abundance of prayer flags, and because it's a valley, the wind can be quite strong. As always, Moira liked to cross the bridge, and here again she's accompanied by our assistant guide. On the way back with the wind blowing strongly, it's most impressive to cross the bridge. This was our hotel the following night. Again, a very impressive building looking down across the valley, and it was a lovely court, a little place outside to sit and have drinks, and there was the prayer wheel where we could offer our prayers. Prayers are put in the prayer wheel, and then it's spun to send the prayers on their way. Because Bhutan is so mountainous, the rivers have cut valleys through the mountains, and on either side they have made terraces because there's so little flat land in the floor of the valley. And it's very pleasant to see all this work that has been done in the long distance. This is a typical traditional village in the valley. In this village there is a temple built by a character called the Divine Madman, and is considered a sacred fertility temple. Here the young monks come to study, and they sit around doing their homework, and they also work on making up what is called ceremonial cake, which is put at the altar of the Buddha. Here they're making cake out of flour, and you can see they're making different forms of cake, and then these will be put at the foot of the Buddha and left there for a year before being taken away.
Oh yes, they can quick. I think about 30 to 40% also they quick.
Because of the reputation of the Divine Madman, and this being a fertility area, phallic symbols are hung from the buildings, and there are phallic symbols drawn on the outside of buildings. This is quite common in Bhutan, in various parts of the country, to find these phallic symbols on buildings. There are also phallic symbols available for sale in the stores. By the stream, little kids having fun in the normal way that kids like to play. Continuing on, we passed along roads that were clinging to the sides of the mountains, with a sheer drop on the left-hand side, going down thousands of feet into the valley. Along the way we passed yaks grazing. We spent a day trekking in this valley where the rare and beautiful black-necked cranes winter over. All power lines are banned in the valley, and the homes are solar powered in order not to disturb the birds' flight paths nor challenge their migration with altered magnetic fields. In the afternoon we could hear the skylarks singing high above. Reminded me very much of the Salisbury Plain in England. That night our hotel was this attractive building set on the slope overlooking the valley. The rooms were very nice, all had a view down over the valley and were very comfortable with wood burning stoves, and it was just a lovely place to spend the night. Yaks are very common in this part of the country, and here a herder is getting ready to move his herd along. You can see how much hair the yak has on its coat, and it's very useful for all sorts of purposes. Rivers cut through deep valleys with the road clinging to the sides of the mountains above. Bhutan generates a lot of electricity on these rivers by small dams and exports it to India. This is a source of revenue for the country. There are chortens or stupas at intersections with prayer flags, and one must go round clockwise round the stupa. This was another delightful hotel we stayed in during our trip. Marijuana grows quite freely throughout the country, but apparently it is not abused. It's available for everybody, but apparently most people don't smoke it. Another fast-flowing river with monks washing their robes and drying them on the rocks. And then another suspension bridge for Moira to cross. She liked crossing these bridges, and as you see there's prayer flags, and the wind can get quite fierce because they're in the valleys and the wind blows down along the valleys. At another zone, artists were selling their homemade artifacts along the way, and they were doing the very intricate painting that they are so good at. This is as far east as we were going overland, and we were flying back now to Paro, and this is the control tower of the airport where we were flying out of. A quite dramatic approach by the aircraft through the mountains that was going to fly us out. There was no apron at this airport, so the aircraft just had to park on the runway, and we boarded there. We made what is commonly called a short field takeoff, where the aircraft goes right to the end of the runway and applies full power with the brakes on before releasing the brakes so that it can get up speed as quickly as possible to get airborne. As we flew along, we could see the rugged countryside below with the winding roads that we had travelled and the towns in the valleys. Our next destination was the Tiger's Nest Monastery, which is 900 meters above the valley floor. It was quite an arduous climb, but Maura was well able for it. All along the way there were prayer flags hung across the trail and views of the Tiger's Nest as we got closer to it. While down below we could see the Paro Valley. In niches along the way there were chortens, which are receptacles for offerings and usually contain religious relics. This temple is reputed to have been founded by Guru Rinpoche, who flew here on the back of a tiger. When he arrived, he spent 3 months meditating in a cave and then founded this monastery, which is 900 meters above the valley floor. On the way up to the monastery, one passes the cave where Guru Rinpoche meditated for 3 months. As one gets ever closer, it is possible to see how the temple clings to the small shelf on the rock. It's a magnificent sight, 900 meters above the valley floor below. Then it was time to leave Bhutan and we were flying out with Duke Air on their A319 Airbus, and we were very lucky because it was a very fine morning, so we had a good chance of seeing the mountains as we flew along. After takeoff we climbed up and were soon flying along the Himalaya mountains with some of the highest peaks in the world. It was a dramatic flight.